Hey everyone, Anya Farber here, your host of ZionistAF. Thank you again to the Brown Hotels because we are in a different location. We're in the Brown Deborah. We're like, let's change it up because what do I want? I want to show you guys different parts of Israel. So along the way, as we've been talking about, if you just start talking to people and just make sure that you're out and about, you might just randomly bump into someone you've really wanted to meet for a very long time. Hence, Eitan is here. And he is sporting his shirt, and I'm sure the minute that you open your mouth and people hear the accent and hear the voice that they're going to be like, oh my God, yes, that guy, I'm that Jew guy. But I'm that Jew lady or Zionist lady or whatever it is. That's me. So Eitan has come on the podcast today to kind of talk about how this came about, what, I guess, like in your view, like what has changed, what do we need to change our perception of, or whatever the case may be, because as we were talking before we came on camera, not everyone is going to go a little like overboard like myself, or you're like wearing the shirt and putting it out there, and that's okay because not everyone can rock the blue hair, and that's okay. But like you have to at least be proud and be confident and not worry. And I think, we can kind of talk about, I guess, like what inspired you to kind of take that first step?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure.
Hey, everyone. When a lot of people don't know this, and you don't know this because, as we were chatting before, I was like, are you familiar with the film? So around 12, 13 years ago, I can't even remember, I think it was 2014, I wrote a piece called I'm That Jew, that literally was on a blog, and it went a little bit viral. And then I decided to turn it into a piece, and I created a 6-minute long film.
And that film is how I first found you. I hadn't seen just the written part of the blog.
Right.
And as we talked about, like I've put that up in a way with my social media that's permanently up there. Like it's just one of the first things people say, because I think I want to know why you created it, because it resonates so deeply with so many people.
Happy to tell you. It was right after Charlie Hebdo. A friend of mine in France, a dear friend, she, as you recall, there was a kosher supermarket and they killed a few Jewish people there. And her father-in-law and brother-in-law happened to be at that supermarket in the morning. And so when I reached out to her to check in on her, because I was in Israel, she was in France, and she said, I'm terrified of saying that I'm Jewish. I don't say that I'm Israeli. And that day I sat down and I wrote this piece, which I then turned into a film. And a lot of people think it's against anti-Semitism, but it isn't. It's actually a message to my Jewish brothers and sisters, which is a reminder of who we are, and that we're not one thing. We're many, many things. We're all sorts of things, and we get to define who we are, and we should never be afraid of saying that, even though it is scary to say it. And that was many years ago.
Yeah.
And since then, it's evolved into a few other things, one of which is just trying to strengthen people to own their own narrative.
Yeah.
And that's come along with a series of banners, which you might have seen, which I celebrate Jewish people, Jewish identity, boldly, colorfully, with no apologies, and also in parallel, honoring non-Jewish people who are allies. And in doing so, to me, they're not just speaking for the Jewish people, but they're speaking for humanity. So my agenda is to allow and give a place for people to simply say, I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
That is it. That is my goal.
Right. Or I love a Jewish person, care for a Jewish person, or something like that, because
or I'm an ally.
Yeah.
But it's so important. The first step that you take in being able to take action is being able to say it. And a lot of people are not saying it because they're scared, and I don't judge, as long as you say it when you're ready, come out and say that you're Jewish. The more people that do that, and the more allies that do that, the stronger our voice will get. And it's going to take decades. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I feel like my time space continuum is really messed up lately. But one of the guests I had on the podcast not that long ago was Angry Mom, and that's what we call her because she had received some threats. She doesn't talk about. I know her identity, but yeah, and she came on with like a blacked out screen. But she's that woman who had said, you know what, must speak, die. I've had enough. She was going past Northwestern, her alma mater, and she's the woman who said all it takes is an angry mom who loves her Jewish friends, and she took down all those like Hamas supporting signs, and in that moment went viral. And she doesn't even know who actually like had videotaped her and and put it up online, but I went like gangbusters. Like, does anyone know who this is? If you do, just please, I want to meet her. I want to say thank you. Like, that's all I really wanted. I just wanted to say thank you. And I think, as a mom, it resonated with me as like that wanting to protect, but also as a Jew, I was like, hey, that's super cool. Like this non-Jewish lady is like, this is not okay, because what's going on in this, like you said, this isn't about anti-Semitism. This is just about your identity. But it's like, if you can't be proud of who you are and you can't feel safe being who you are, that's a problem.
Well, I think it's not that we're not proud of who we are. I mean, there are a lot of people that aren't proud, unfortunately. But I'd say the vast majority are proud. The difference with the Jewish people is that we're not, and for good reason, we have difficulty expressing that because of fear. So the whole idea of I don't walk around wearing this shirt. I'm literally wearing it because, you told me to come on.
I mean, I would walk around wearing it.
And in Israel, I don't need to, but
that's true.
But abroad, I do. I wear my Magen David. I've got my hostage tags under the shirt, which I put out, and I do wear this, and I do wear Shalom Motherfucker, and I do wear things about Israel because we're inwardly proud, but we need to be outwardly proud.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. And the reason, look, I don't know how many people know, but I have a branding agency, and I've been in the world of branding for 30 years. We're working with some, Apple and Google and Facebook and YouTube.
Some small little startup companies people might have heard of.
Right, and that's not to toot my own horn. It's to say that I know a thing or two about branding, and when you want to galvanize when you want to put your narrative out there, whether you're a company or an organization or a service or a people, like Black Lives Matter, then you don't just overnight make T-shirts and then start putting them out there. What you do is you define your vision, and the vision is quite simply, I'm Jewish and I'm going to say it. And then you strengthen the people around you, your company, your organization, your people inwards to say it. And that can grow. And when when you put energy into that and enough people start saying it, then you start having more strength. Then you start building a real community, and then you can put it out there. But unless you focus on the echo chamber, which is quite controversial right now, people are saying, stop talking to the echo chamber.
There's a lot of different,
my agenda is in terms of
talk to the
echo chamber for the purposes of reminding ourselves what we're all about, which is, I think, a very special people. And then strengthening that message internally so that with the numbers, we can say it outwardly. My dream is to see the next big Jewish demonstration, not in Israel, in the States, with tens of thousands of people wearing, I'm that Jew, or I'm this type of Jew, I'm that type of Jew, a Star of One, even if it's not for me, Jewish pride, wearing it and showing it.
ZionistAF.
Well, because you have to think about why does that actually help? You're not just wearing a shirt. When I see you wearing Zionist, then I might approach you and I might be like, I'm Yisrael Chai. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, instead of that one of you, there's two of you, and you multiply that by 10. Yeah. You multiply that by 200. Yeah. Then you also bring on allies. If we're not speaking up for ourselves loudly and proudly, then who's going to speak for us?
I feel like that's one of those like sound bites for the century. If we're not speaking up for ourselves, who else is going to speak up for us too? And I think I'm not a religious person,
Me neither.
but that's the beauty of Israel, right? Like you just be all over the place. But one of the things that I definitely got into, and actually it was as a teenager here in Israel with my youth group, we were reading Pirkei Avot and discussing. And the one of the things that resonates with me is if I am not for me, who will be?
Mhm.
If I am for myself alone, who am I?
Mhm.
And if not now, when? And that was either my high school yearbook quote or my college yearbook quote. And I feel like that kind of is what you're talking about, and standing for yourself. And I wonder, like, do you think, because again, this is not something that you just created because of October 7th or anything recently. This is from
Long time
more
ago.
than a decade ago, and that feels weird to say, but it's true. So do you think that it's really strange. So I do currently live in the United States and come here for work. But Bizrat Hashem, in a year I'll be here and just having to go to the States when I need to. But I look around in my community, in my state, in my surrounding states. I mean, the U.S. is a very big piece of land, and there's a lot of diversity. But the thing that scares me is I am seeing like this common thread, and it's this horrifically anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, very angry, very violent rise in behavior and actions and speech and all of these things, to the point that as a mother and someone who really values her education and my son's education, we made a decision as a family not to apply to colleges in the United States, because I think for us, it was making that statement and saying, as an American Jew, I cannot support what is going on. Therefore, I will not enroll. And Fox interviewed me, and David Rutz was the reporter, and he was a good reporter because he goes, well, don't you think you're capitulating for the protesters? And I was like, kudos on a SAT vocabulary word, but no, I'm not, because my decision is not a reaction to the protesters. My decision is my answer to how the universities and colleges are paid.
Sure.
So do you think that what is going on now is almost beneficial and more of a calling? Have more people reached out to you and been like, I shared your video, or I saw your video for the first time in a long time? Because I can't imagine people are seeing it for the first time because it has been around, but maybe they are,
Well, a lot of people aren't aware because the banners have been, 25 million views, so they don't know that there's a film as well. I think that right now we need to just be vocal, and I don't mean as a people. I literally mean one person. One person needs to be vocal. That's what it takes. One person at a time to say, I'm Jewish. I mean, literally, I'm Jewish. That's it.
No matter where you are.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to do it in maybe the Syrian Arab district in France right now. In the middle of the town square. But in general, I do think that that you should just be able to say it. I mean, and that is my vision for I'm That Jew. When I put the film out, you write a caption, right? When you post something. And so my caption was, my name is Eitan Chitayat and I'm that Jew. And the reason why I did that was because I didn't want it to be anonymous, and I wanted to just say it. And by doing so, the idea was to inspire others to say it. And on Facebook 12 years ago, or whenever it was, when Facebook was still quite kind of a lovely place, outing yourself like that was not an easy thing to do. And I knew that I would get hate, which I did, but I did it anyway because I'm proud of being Jewish. I'm proud of everything that comes along with being Jewish in terms of our values. And if I say it, maybe other people will say it. And that's what happened. I mean, it's been seen around 15 million times, but when you share it on Facebook, as people still do, it's not anonymous. So if you share it, you're saying that, and I think that's really important for us to do. It's important to say that you're Jewish. It's the first. You can't tackle all the things we're tackling from the shadows. You have to be able to say it and draw strength from other people who are saying it. And that's, by the way, as a branding expert, that's what you do. I mean, when Apple started to become big 30 years ago, what they did was, as a company, they galvanized their base. They built their brand inwards and made people proud, and they reminded people, Steve Jobs reminded people of what they were trying to do with the company and the values of the company and how they were trying to change the world internally.
Yeah.
And then those people became what we call brand ambassadors when they went
out into the world.
And it's continued. So it's just to set the context, it's not that different. If you look at Black Lives Matter, and I'm not down with the movement Black Lives Matter.
Well, it's been like hijacked and corrupted.
But in terms of a brand, when they started, they looked inwards, they galvanized their base, and then they went out, and then white people were saying Black Lives Matter because, you know what, Black lives do matter.
Yes.
But you can't. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. No, this did not just happen. But
no, actually, what I mean is, like, this type of thing that I'm trying to do, I'm not talking about the last 10, 12, 15 years, whatever it is. I'm talking about moving forward. It's decades worth of work, which our enemies have done. See, our enemies have realized, and that they're well funded. They have a vision. They're investing in it.
And they're sticking to it.
And they're sticking to it for decades. And that's where the Jewish world and leadership and Israeli governments from the left to the right have failed us. So it's on the people to come out and wear Zionist, and that's what I'm trying to do.
So we were talking before the podcast with kind of like a little background about me, and I did used to work for the Israeli Foreign Ministry as an American in an Israeli consulate. And it's funny because I have had these conversations, and I obviously will not mention on the podcast with whom I've had them with, but for over 20 years I've been having this conversation of like, why are we always reactive and not proactive?
Well, do you know why?
Well, I know the government line of why.
What is it?
Like, it's like, well, Anya, we're very concerned with, we always want to be correct and check the facts, and we're not going to, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. But like the same picture for 20 years has been circulating. I mean, like,
I'll tell you the reason why.
And I was pulling this up because I wanted you to see like how it's permanently on my Facebook. But tell me why, because I think that a lot of people don't understand. And the thing is, even if there's a valid reason for it, here's my issue. And I'm just going to say it because this is what it is. I put this to, oh gosh, sorry, there's my phone. Okay. If someone is looking at, let's just say like cars, okay? So they're comparing car A and car B. And car B is like, hey, this car is like, has this new feature. And oh, by the way, we're having a sale. And oh, by the way, when you refer a friend. And oh, by the way, if you just come in. And they're constantly talking to you. And car A company is like, well, we just know what we have is fine. And like, it's the best. And so we're not going to talk to you. And then when you come to talk to us, we're going to act like, why are you asking us questions you should know the answers to? And then, but car B company is like, hello. Who are you going to go and like, or at some point you're just going to like, all you're going to hear. So that's what's going to be in your head is from this one side. And I'm like, I don't know what to say, but I wish we could be better.
Yep. I mean, that's pretty much the long and short of it. When you are an entity, whether it's a company or people, and you allow other people to speak for you, then over the course of decades, and while they're getting funding and while they're targeting specific people and they have a vision, it's not that you don't even have a counter narrative. You don't even have a narrative. A narrative is something on the outside. It's not something you only keep to yourself. So the way that we've been beaten in this public relations war, and this is the failure of Jewish leadership as a whole, is that we have not invested in narrative. You'll give, you'll have $10 million to spend. You'll spend 50,000 of those dollars on narrative, where you really need to spend a lot more because narrative ultimately can save lives. If you imagine that we had invested in, and I'm not talking about Israel, I'm talking about the Jewish people for 30 to 40 years, I don't know that it would have stopped October 7th from happening. It probably wouldn't have. That's a whole story.
Yeah, it's like a separate.
But on October 8th, I guarantee you this, we would not be in the situation where lives are at risk, because without world condemnation, Israel cannot act. Without world condemnation, anti-Semitism can thrive and can lead to dangerous situations abroad. So we're playing catch up. We're still in emergency mode. But what I wanted to say was, when I was talking about I'm that Jew, moving forward, being able to say that you're Jewish is the work of decades into the future. And it needs to be invested in when times are good, not when times are bad. And that's what I'm trying to do all the time.
Do you think, I mean, I feel like if you wanted to take like another group, right? Because I think sometimes it helps people kind of comprehend. So like gay rights activists, right? And the Pride movement. Even in like my adult-ish, I don't know, like post-college or whatever, I can see the how far things have come. But again, it's because there's been investment and time, and then, people continued to speak out, and it grew, like you said, from within. And I mean, guys, if you're going to listen to anyone, he's a branding expert. I mean, it's like going.
Well, there are lots of branding experts, but I mean, just make it. It makes sense.
This is like not just who you are. This is also what you're doing with your I'm that Jew life. And so it kind of makes sense, and somehow we just have to understand that. But I do think that there are groups, like you've said, who do seem to grasp that concept better. And, I mean, you could make 1,000 jokes, like 2 Jews, 8 opinions, or whatever the thing is. Like, and maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah, please.
So, again, I'm not tooting my own horn. The film's been around for over a decade. It's been seen 15 million times. The work that I've done in the last, 9 months has been seen 150 million times. Before then, 100. So 250 million views of my work. And there are many other people who are doing advocacy, and also no one's knocking on my door from leadership, which says something. And it's not someone needs to come and work with Eitan. What I'm saying is that the Jewish world, the leaders of the Jewish world, don't get it. So all of this is going to come from the people. It's going to come from the private sector. And then I think organizations will latch onto it because they're not capable of doing this specific job. They're very capable of doing other things and doing wonderful things. But in terms of narrative, it's got to come from a place of heart and soul, and it's got to come from the people. Because if people start wearing their Jewish pride and they're openly saying they're Jewish, which is the work of strengthening, then and no one needs to be as crazy as you. I mean, it doesn't, I mean, you're all decked out, but like enough to wear a Magen David.
I have to wear like 8 different things.
Yeah, but let's just take your average person who's in the Midwest, and they're the only Jewish family on the block, and you go to work, and you're having a shit day because of something that happened in Israel, or because there's Jewish hatred in your neighborhood or in your state or in a neighboring state. And people are like gathered around the water cooler, they're in the kitchen, they're in the cafeteria at work, and they're like all hanging out, and you're miserable. You're miserable because it's fucked up. Because you're scared, because you feel isolated, because you feel alone. So that Jewish person, they might not say anything. It's not like they might not say that they're Jewish. Someone might say, "Hey, what's with the gloomy face?" And that person might respond with a lie. "Well, I just had a hard day," as opposed to saying, "Well, I'm Jewish, and this stuff is really affecting me." People won't even say that. Now, that's not a judgment. That's hard. I've lived abroad. I know what it's like to show vulnerability. But if you can say that, then I think the people would be surprised at the support that they get. Because once you start being vocal, it's not like I'm fucking Jewish. It's like I'm Jewish and I'm hurting, or I'm Jewish and the world is upside down, or I'm Jewish and I don't understand why people are saying these things and not defending us. Whereas when those things were said, people did speak up.
Yeah.
So it starts with the individual, and it starts with people who are not as gung-ho as some people out there. But I want people to be able to say I'm Jewish. It's not even like loud and proud. It's just like, just say you're Jewish. It's the first step. It's the first step. The first step to everything. And without it, we're not going to be able to win this war. So what's interesting is you have a lot of Jewish advocacy and a lot of Israel advocacy,
Sure.
which is brilliant, and a lot of people are speaking. But I don't think that there are many people who are investing in just that small step. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to put 100% into, because I know that it will serve all Jewish people, and I know that it'll serve all Jewish organizations, and I know that it will bring people confidence enough to sign petitions, go to demonstrations, put pressure on political leadership, get the lawyers to work, get the commerce to, get people to galvanize.
And as you're saying that, it reminds me, I used to work with like young adults, teenagers, and I remember that when there was this like small thing that you could do as an adult, saying like, just putting, I think it was like a little sticker or something like, I'm an ally. You can talk to me. You can tell me something. And, for students who were struggling with their sexual identity and being able to say that they, maybe were questioning or feeling like they were gay or just not sure, right?
Put it out there.
Right. So, because there isn't necessarily a safe space all the time, it was like that little gesture, that one person that was willing to say, this is who I am. And then people were like, I'm glad you told me, right? Or just like, have you been feeling like concerned to say it? And obviously I'm not equating like coming out of being, a different sexual orientation with being a religion. It's just like you're saying, taking that step, like being able to take that step to
when you're a minority, and when you feel that there are many, many, many more people who either hate you or don't like you or who are ambiguous about you, then it takes courage to come out and say something. But I think that people would be surprised at the support that they might get. There's a line of jewelry that I created based on I'm That Jew. So the I'm That Jew campaign has all sorts of statements. Like it could be I'm that Zionist Jew. It could also be I'm that father of two Jew. I mean, it's up to you to decide what the narrative is.
And I like that it's all-encompassing.
It is, because we're not one thing.
No.
So in the jewelry that I made with Miriam Ehrenfeld, we took all of my statements and we put them on pieces of jewelry. And what's interesting is that people have been buying them, and you have this little statement on a piece of jewelry, and one of them is like, I'm that proud, unapologetic Zionist Jew. Let's just say there are many statements. So people lean into the jewelry.
I do need to add that to the tier of necklaces.
But people, this is the point I want to make. People lean in, and they read it, and then it sparks a conversation.
Sure.
People will be like, well, what Zionist? I thought that what Zionist is terrible.
Right.
And then the person wearing it is like, well, actually, let me tell you what Zionism is.
Let me explain it.
So with words and with narrative, the individual and not the state and not Jewish leadership can make the change.
Exactly. I have a friend, she put something, if Zionism is a dirty word, talk dirty to me.
Yeah, nice.
I told her she should make it into like a little song. But I think that, you're 100% right. Even with the fact that I have my name, Anya, in Hebrew letters, and I wear it, and people are like, well, what is that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's my name in Hebrew.
Yeah.
Because I'm Jewish.
And what's Hebrew and what's Jewish?
Right.
People forget, we're 16 million people. I remember times when I've walked into, I've done a lot of traveling in my time around the world, and I'm the first Jew that people ever met. People don't know who we are. So if we don't say who we are, and I think, by the way, this is the biggest faux pas of our leadership. And again, when I say,
Listen up.
Well, when I say that, when I'm talking about leadership, it's not to shit on anyone.
No.
It's not to say that Jewish leadership sucks. It's to say that this was a failure, so that we can learn from our mistake. And I'll tell you what our failure was on multiple levels. I said already that we don't own our narrative. Okay,
Yeah.
that's failure one.
Sure.
Failure two is when our enemies are so strong with their narrative that their narrative actually instills fear in us saying who we are. That's the biggest faux pas, because if we're so scared to say we're Jewish because we're afraid that they've induced so much hate with their narrative that we can't say who we are, then they've won twice. So you have to, roll up your sleeves, and you have to find the courage to speak your truth, because I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, hey, I'm Jewish. That's it. It's that simple. Because the springboard from saying that is being able to say all the wonderful things that come with being Jewish, all of our values that come with being Jewish. And hey, you can also say a value is also to say, we're also not perfect. That's a value, to be able to have humility and say, yeah, we might not be 100%, but we're good. We're good people. So I think that when you look at narrative, and you look at what the people that hate us are trying to do, they're trying to take away our narrative from those on the outside, but they're taking away our narrative from the inside too.
That's true.
And we can't let them do that.
Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And so along with the podcast, we're obviously going to put the links up, and I'm pulling up my phone because I wanted to
what are you doing?
Show you.
I'm checking your email.
No. Hold on. We're going to my page. So after my description, the first thing that comes up is...
Wow, yeah. I'm a Jew and I'm proud. I will not be quiet. Anti-Semitism on the rise in the US. Share this and stand up against hate. I'm not afraid
This
to
is
stand
like
up.
a repost of the many times that it's hard to see with the camera. But again, all these links go up to the clothing and the jewelry and like those other collaborative works that you've done. But I think even like watching that, and I've shared that with people to maybe help them understand, because I think people forget. And I have also been places where I am the first Jew someone meets, and some of the questions are bizarre, and some are, whatever. And I'm not offended. I just hit the mic. I'm not offended. I'd rather you ask me the question and at least try to get some sort of a dialogue going and have someone understand, because I remember being somewhere, and people are like, well, we're not going to talk about what's going on right now. And I'm like, why? Like, I need to talk about it. It's affecting me because I am Jewish. I am a Zionist. I have friends here. I have family here. I don't know. I care about people. Like, why is that like such a thing? Like, why do we feel we should be quiet?
Well, because it's controversial. Because the enemy has made it controversial. Meaning, I have a very, very dear friend who's the best. He's just like he's a brother. He's minority. He's black. Wonderful, wonderful human being. One of my closest friends, really like my brother in the States. And it was very hard for him to support the Jewish people publicly. Online, you see. And I was like, why won't you? He's like, well, I don't want to get political. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? You're saying, just I stand with the Jewish people. That's it, in the face of anti-Semitism. Because what our enemies have been able to do is they've been able to create a narrative where being Jewish is equated with Israel. You say you're Jewish, that means you say you're Israel. That means you are a dirty Zionist who is murdering Palestinian kids. So they've been very successful, and people need to understand that, honestly, I keep saying this over and over again, that's the work of narrative. Yeah. They've invested in messaging that has poisoned culture.
A very clear,
and unless people start speaking up, then we're not going to get out of this. And speaking up means literally, I didn't attack him. I didn't judge him. It requires patience and not saying, oh, they don't understand. They don't. Well, shut the fuck up and start explaining. Don't wait for the influencers. Don't wait for the advocates. Don't wait for the activists. Don't wait for the organizations. Don't wait for the Israeli government. It's on you to speak up and confront the lie, because the lie is going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger unless you start speaking up for yourself. But it takes time, it takes courage, it takes conviction. And I don't want people to look at me and think that I'm that, because you introduced me like I'm that Jew guy. I'm that Jew guy. I'm not. I want to say this because I don't want people to misunderstand.
Yes.
It happens a lot. I have a branding agency. I am married with 2 kids. I work my ass off. The Jewish advocacy is something that I've done over the course of years on the side. It's just something that I do because I think that it's an important thing to do. But this is not my day job.
No.
But I'm doing it now because full steam, and
you feel like you.
Yeah, it's because I'm trying to show people that this needs to happen from the people. And
by the way, your wife is lovely.
She is lovely. Yeah. We're not going to talk about her because we keep it public, but we keep it private. But yeah, she is lovely. She's amazing. She's amazing. She's been a huge source of strength to me.
Yeah.
But it's so important that everyone understands, not hey, say that you're Jewish. Yeah, but not say who you're Jewish. It's so important that people understand why it's so important.
Yeah.
That is going to, over the course of years, it's going to shift the tide. Because if you're also saying that you're Jewish and that you're proud of being Jewish, then allies will be like, well, they're speaking up for themselves. I'm going to join them. That demonstration where there's 50,000 Jews, every one of those brought like a non-Jewish person allies. They will come if you speak up for yourselves. Yeah. It's that simple.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I didn't,
I love that you keep saying that. It's great that you couldn't agree more. That's great.
I know. I don't know. It's one of those things that I say. It's like my little.
No, but I'm glad that you're saying. I'm glad that you agree.
But I do, because the thing is, I think anyone who knows me personally, as opposed to just knowing me from the podcast or knowing me as like occasionally on Instagram when I like lose my mind and I'm like, I've had it up to here with all of the BS coming out of the White House. And then I call it my crazy rant in front of the TV because I want to reference what is driving me nuts. That there are aspects to what you put together. And I think because of what you do for a living and what, you learned and were trained to do and have really fine-tuned over the years, the message that you're putting out there that people like can either use to like let it resonate with themselves or use to then say, okay, you know what, I'm going to say something, impacts people. And the thing is, like, I don't even know how many years ago I first saw it. Like, did I see it that first week it came out? I couldn't even tell you. I barely remember what happened last week, but I just remember being like, that's awesome. Right? And
thanks.
You're very welcome. And I just feel like that's so important to me, because I think that when you're having doubts, and even someone like me who has double, triple, quadrupled down since October 7th about being very outwardly proud to be Jewish, proud to be a Zionist, like dyeing her hair blue. I keep explaining to the lovely ladies who do my nails, like, no, I don't want to try a new color. It always has to be this blue and white. And, like, I'm sorry. I know maybe it's not fun for them anymore, but I mean, this is who I am, and I'm going to, stick to my narrative, because if the little things, like you said, if the saying I'm Jewish, or like, this is stressing me out, or if someone's like, oh, wow, I love your nails, I'll be like, oh, well, it's part of, representing and standing up for Israel, or standing proud to be Jewish.
Everyone has their own way.
Right, but there are lots of different ways you can do that. And I think that, like you said, everyone has to find their own thing. And I do think it's interesting that you brought up this idea of like this almost like divide of like, why are you speaking to the echo chamber? And then we need to, I think there's a time and a place for everything.
Sure.
But it is true. I think people have to understand that, in order to take it back, because unlike some of the things that are being said, looking at someone unless they are like a very religious Jew who wears identifying things like a yarmulke or a kippah, however you guys, whichever word you'd like, or other things that are clearly worn by someone who's Jewish. You can't just like if you were not wearing that T-shirt and I didn't have a ton of Judaic on me, I don't know that you'd be like, oh, you're Jewish. Like, funny, you don't look Jewish. Well, we were a nomadic people for a very long time. You and I don't look related, and we're both Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look around Israel, you could stand on a corner and just see so much diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go. So it's not like just, you had mentioned you have a friend who is a minority and, just skin
He's
color,
black, yeah.
right? So like you can't really hide,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's like an outward thing. But when you're, or it's like someone who their sexual orientation is not something you would just tell by looking at someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you, so maybe it's because of that people, I mean, look, I don't know like where this all kind of like, I don't know where we lost it, but it was taken from us. And even though we watched it being taken from us,
it's not very complicated.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of words are being said, but it's not that complicated. It's like when you don't invest in your identity, then eventually, you don't have much of a narrative. Worse, if you don't invest in your identity when people are against you, then it's even worse.
Yeah.
Worse still, if you don't invest in your identity and people hate you and want to destroy you,
that's where we're at.
Then you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
And there's been hundreds of years of that, but since probably the 60s, probably like the 6-Day War, early 70s, Israel and the Jewish people have stopped investing in the narrative of the Jewish people. And what they have done, what we have done collectively, has not been effective. So we're smart. We're the people of the book. We are extraordinarily talented. We're, as you say, resilient. And I think that when we put our minds to something, there's no stopping us. And we have the creativity, we have the wisdom, we have the resources, we have the know-how. What we don't have is the vision. And my personal vision is every Jewish person who is Jewish can say that they're Jewish. That's the vision. And to get behind that little sliver, people say that, you can't change who you are. And I believe that you can't change who you are. You can't, if you're 100%, you can't change change who you are 80%. But what you can do is, well, like take a relationship, a man and a woman, and the woman says to the man, well, I want to change who you are. And the man says, well, I can't change who I am. This is who I am. Great. But what the man can do, or the woman, is, well, I can take this 5% of who I am, where I'm kind of fucking up as a partner, and I can invest a lot of energy into changing that 5%.
Yeah.
You change that 5%, and then it'll affect the 95%.
Yeah.
So that's the part that we need to invest in, that little sliver of invest in Jewish pride, and it will open up doors to big change, but it needs to be invested in. It needs to be thought about, and it needs to be consistent, and it needs to be supported. And again, it's not I'm that Jew necessarily. I mean, that's my thing, which I'm trying to express, but it's Jewish. Say you're Jewish. It's that simple.
And I think by breaking it down that way and saying like, look, we're not asking you to alter your life. I'm not asking people to do a 180. No. I'm not even asking people to go and take 10 steps. It's like one little thing. And if it's like they say, if you make one small change in your life to like, I don't know, remind yourself to hold the door open for someone. Sure. That's like, right. If you do it and remind yourself, like it becomes better. Like you said, that the example in the relationship, if you, like, you know what, well, I kind of could improve how I am treating this person. So this little step, right? One little step.
I mean, not everyone is a shy Davidai, and I've been, in touch and collaborating and working together. Shai Davidai, the professor from Columbia University. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So not everyone is a Shai Davidai. Not everyone is going to stand on a street corner and shout and say, I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish, and then dedicate, for the most part, the last 6 months of his life, 9-10 months of his life, to being that advocate, loud and proud activist to inspire other people. Not everyone is Shai Davidai, but like if someone like that speaks up, then you can turn up to a demonstration.
Yeah.
You can sign a petition.
Yeah.
You can consider, hey, I'm not going to send my kids to a university that doesn't speak up when there's Jew hatred on their campus. I'm going to go to another university. Why? Because I'm Jewish and I'm saying that I'm Jewish. You can do that. Everyone has the power to do that. So I don't want people to feel like you have to be an activist. You have to be like the way that you are. Exactly. It's like you don't have, you can literally wear a Magen David. You can literally say that you're Jewish, and that will inspire you to do other things, which will make a change. And it's the people that are going to make a change. People are going to make the difference, not organizations, not people. Not people like me, past the inspiring maybe. I really believe that. I believe the power is with the people. And I'm not an activist. I'm not like one of these people who's... No,
you're not.
I'm not.
No.
I'm a creator. I'm not an activist.
I mean, I was super thrilled to have literally bumped into you, like in I think it was last week. But, I think that another thing, you brought up Shai Davidai, and I remember like when he first started speaking out, he was like he's, and you could see everything that he was going through. And he was, for better or for worse, shoved into this position. And he was very open about saying like, this is not like what I...
Yeah, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, he's like, I did not sign up for this, but I'm here. And so therefore I'm going to be vocal. And that's hard.
Those, to me, in this Jewish advocacy space, the people that I admire the most are the people that are not just speaking to the Jewish people, but they're actually doing. Like, so for example, Shai is on the ground. He's on the front lines.
He is.
And
he's welcome to come on the podcast at any point.
He's literally, and those are the people I think to look to, because it's not enough to go to a Jewish event and to speak at a Jewish event. To me, that's easy. The hard thing is what you watching need to do. You need to live your life in a non-Jewish world and say that you're Jewish on your own. That's hard. And the reason I bring up Shai and others like him is because Shai is doing exactly that. He's being vocal in a non-Jewish world, but look at the support that he's getting. Look at the impact that he's making. I can tell you that I took my speaking for the Jewish people, speaking for Israel, to a very scary place. And to me, that's LinkedIn. Because it's easy to do it on Instagram. It's easy to do it on Twitter. It's easy to do it on fucking TikTok, but LinkedIn is my bread and butter.
Sure.
And when you do it on LinkedIn...
It was a big statement because that's a professional...
Yeah, as a professional. And I've lost tons of business.
Yeah.
But my following has grown because of the support that I'm getting from not only Jewish people, but like-minded people who understand. So the point I'm making is it's scary. But do you really want to be scared of being able to say who you are? And when was the last time that happened? When you're not able to say who you are, then you're hiding. When you're hiding, you're weak. When you're weak, you will be targeted. When you're targeted, you can be targeted physically, you can be targeted verbally, and you can be targeted... not to be dramatic, but the 30s, it started because we started hiding.
Yeah.
You have to do the opposite. Scary as it is.
No, I mean, I hear like, and I see
say
it.
You agree.
I totally agree with what you're saying. But I see, I'm picking up what you're putting out.
No, I'm with you. I'm just tubing.
I think it's interesting because, we are sitting here in Israel, right? And this is the Jewish state, and not everyone who is here is Jewish, but it is the only place in the Middle East where you can freely worship any religion. It's weird, this area that we're in, this hostile area. But I try sometimes to explain to people, because I get a lot of like, this never turned off. Like, this is just who I am. Now, my one of my most loyal followers on the podcast, and of course my father, and he's probably chuckling right now, a lot. But sometimes I try to explain to people here, they're like, "Do you wear all of this at home?" And I go, "Yeah." This is my favorite thing. Aren't you afraid? I'm like,
it's a legitimate question.
It is a legitimate question. Yeah. And in fact, when I was on the subway in the city, I guess it was in New York City. Sorry, I know I say the city and I just assume people know it's New York City. It was just like a random thing that happened. This older gentleman, subway doors are closing. He jumped in but tripped, hit his head on the pole, and there were only like a few of us that were and tried to help him. Now, there was I didn't know at the time there were a couple, but it was a couple who also tried to help him up and sit him down. And I noticed that the woman looked at me, but looked down, being this, and then looked back up, made eye contact, and gave me this little smile.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, back, and
it's huge.
It was. So at the time I was like, okay, but we were trying to get more, the man was bleeding and everything. It was actually kind of a significant thing. And she was trying to get her husband's attention. And so then she audibly said something to him and it was Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
But she was quiet about it. Mm-hmm. And then I looked at her and I smiled even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And, after we knew that the gentleman for sure was going to be okay. And someone from the MTA was coming to see what other medical assistance he needed. I smiled at her and I go, you can speak Hebrew on the train. It's okay.
Listen, you say that, but
no, I know. No,
it's
but
scary.
It is, because they had just gotten there and it was I think it was before, or I don't know, maybe it was after, because again, my time-space continuum is very bad right now. Those crazy, hateful people got on the subway because they're on a power trip and they're screaming, "Any Zionists, get off the train now!" And I was like, but I said to her, because she looked at me and she was like, "Really, you go around like this?" And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not saying everyone else has to. I'm not. I think you have to be true to who you are, but that one little step of saying, I am not afraid, right? I am not saying that you need to do what I'm doing. And some of that is going to rallies and speaking and then being interviewed on camera, because this is a world of technology where my name is out there and it's not hard to figure out where I live or things about me because they're out there. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to do that, but I do love this idea of this one step, because I think especially in the States right now, that one step can be so huge.
Yep.
Because this idea of even if you are scared, this idea of Jewish identity is very strong, right? And Jews often identify with a certain political party or thought that they've had to, and there's this big dialogue and shifting, and people are like, "Oh, I don't know if I should go to synagogue." And I remember a security expert calling me off of LinkedIn and said, "Well, I'm giving this talk and I'm going to tell the community that they shouldn't wear their yarmulkes." I was like, "Oh my God, can I be in the room when you tell people, take off your yarmulkes?" I go, "Well, that'll be the last time you work in the Jewish community." I'm like, "Justify. Go ahead, justify it to me." He's like, "Well, you shouldn't look for trouble." And I go, "Do you hear yourself right now? You shouldn't look for trouble. So being who you are is looking for, I'm sorry, sir, could you be less black? Could you be less Asian? Could you be less female?" What?
Yeah, but I get it. Because there's no counter narrative. And it'll continue that way until people just start doing. So
what are some of the steps? Can we, if someone's watching this, they're like, "I don't know what to do," let's give them.
Look, it's my wife tells me this all the time. She says, "Don't say you should."
Okay. She sounds really smart.
Yeah, she drives me nuts. She's smart though. But on a serious note, like it's hard to say you should do this. But what I would recommend it's in your comfort zone.
Okay. What can people do?
They can say that they're Jewish.
Okay.
I mean, that's the starting point. It's like I gave an example. You're having a rough day because of something that happened in Israel, or because there was some anti-Semitism in your neighborhood. You can call up a close friend who is not Jewish, and you can say, I'm having a hard time, and they'll ask you why. And you can tell them. Now, they might feel uncomfortable going there because they think it's controversial, but go there. That to me is saying that you're Jewish. Or you can wear a Magen David on the outside, and you can get dirty looks and everything, but it's something that you can do so that if someone gives you a look of solidarity or kind of what's that all about, then it's an opportunity to express who it is that you are, and there's nothing political about that. That's another way of saying that you're Jewish. Another way of being Jewish is being a part of the community. And I'm not, when I lived abroad, I was not a super active member of the Jewish community. I'm Israeli, so a lot of Israelis stick together. But I think that has evolved now, where Israelis and Jewish people in the diaspora are more aligned. So you can get involved in your community and you can do things. I'm a brand builder. Hey, if you're a writer, offer your services to the community. If you're a fundraiser, offer your services to the community for this cause. If you're in public relations, do that. If you're a lawyer, do that. If you're in technology, contribute. That's also a part of being Jewish right now. Strength in numbers. We need every single person as a community to be able to say that which we are proud of overall, which is very simple. I'm Jewish. I have no reason on earth to hide that. I will not hide that. The more you hide it, the more ammunition you give to the people who hate you. And the vast majority of people, I don't think, hate us. I think the vast majority of people
have been like
I think
hijacked into the
not even. I also think that they're ambivalent. They just don't know. They just don't know. So I've never been one to. I've never been one. I'm trying to put this into words. I get scared.
And that's normal.
Yeah,
I get.
I'm fearful. It's okay to be scared.
Yeah.
But, and this is a banner I put out for my favorite campaign, which is called the Jewish People. Like all these statements from the Jewish people. It's okay to be scared, but it's what you do with that fear.
Yeah.
That matters. So if you're scared, that's okay. But what are you going to do with it?
I mean, I think that's a really great way to put it. I have a friend, Sari Singer. She survived a terror attack here in Israel over 20 years ago. And I went to hear her speak just to be a supportive friend because I know what she's gone through, but I'd never actually heard her speak publicly. So I went, and she said, which kind of aligns with what you said, she said, I don't define myself by what happened to me. It's what I'm doing moving forward.
Yep.
And I think that it's okay to say I'm scared. I also saw, I think it was a End Jew Hatred billboard.
I love them, by the way. End Jew Hatred. And
it's nice because the billboards are like very bright. You can't really miss them.
Are you talking about Jubilant or End Jew Hatred? The pink ones?
No, maybe it was. Was it pink? And is that Jubilant? I'll have to look. I have it on my phone, but it said, I have to be able to tell my children I didn't stay silent. And I feel like that really can talk to every single human. That's not about being Jewish. It's like you have to speak up when something is wrong. But I like how that resonated.
I think that's absolutely true, and that's a big part of the reason I'm doing it. But it's a kind of a cop-out, because I should do it for me, first and foremost. It's like the airplane is going down, the oxygen comes down, you put it on your face first.
Right. Well, yeah.
But I'm saying that I agree with what you're saying, and I applaud the sentiment, and it's the right reason. But the really right reason is that you should be able to live your life for you and be the example for your children. You're not doing it for your children. You're doing it for you and by proxy for your children.
Yes, you're leading by example, but because you have to be if you just say to do something like "do as I say, not as I do," then you're not really being true to yourself. So,
and it's hard. It's not easy.
Right.
And it's not easy.
No, but I do want everyone to know that they can still check out that video that is now over a decade old, that I am that Jew. And what I urge you guys to do is, we will put, all of the social media ways to, be in touch with you and whatever it is that.
Words by Eitan Chitayat. I mean,
it'll go up in the transcript, so nobody has to worry about like rewinding, but please feel free to listen over and over. But we'll put up all those things. But, I'd like to, sometimes I try to kind of posting with a sort of call to action. Can't turn that PR thing off. But again, we're not saying this is what you have to do. Eitan did not say you all have to go post on LinkedIn. I am Jewish. Now, it's funny that you said that you took that leap, because I also started posting some of my articles like we have to stop terrorizing the victims and victimizing the terrorists. I actually started to put a lot of my work and my advocacy on LinkedIn. And it's interesting, like, because yes, there was a shift, but there was more of an upward motion than a backlash. And I also have made a professional decision, like I'm only working on advocating for Israel and representing Israeli companies, or I will represent like nonprofits that are doing good in the world, that kind of thing. But I also made, a conscious shift to do that. And that was a decision I made, and I have to live with, the repercussions, but I'm okay with that. Now, if you will simply, and if you don't feel comfortable posting it where the podcast is available on YouTube, or like, you don't have to post in the comments. If you want, post in the comments. If you want to DM me on any of the social media where you guys know where to find me, DM me. I'm Jewish. I'm that Jew. I saw Eitan's segment and I said, yes, that's me. Ze ani. I say go for it, because we do need to be strong within to then grow and grow and grow. And don't let someone take your narrative from you. It's your narrative. So say who you are, be okay with it, open up to just one friend, just one colleague.
One at a time. It's honestly one at a time, and it's decades worth of work. It is. But we're on the road. I'm actually very hopeful. I'm very, very hopeful. I think we've woken up, and I think we haven't even started to begin to fight back yet. But but I think it starts with being able to say that you're Jewish. Ain't nothing to be ashamed of at all. To the contrary.
So I always like to leave, each person with something. So please know that, for me, this is, I'm very grateful, because that, when I saw it again, I'll go back through the history to figure out when, and I honestly don't even know. I think it was in a random YouTube search or something like that. I think I watched it 2, 3, maybe even 4 times, in a row, because I was like, this is great. And it just, and it re-energized something in me. And look, have I always been an advocate openly? Yes, but to this level, no. And it empowered me and allowed me to remember that I can do for myself and for who I am and how I identify because of that. And I'm so grateful that you have your shirt on, but as a branding person, you have to,
I actually don't do it a lot, but
for the podcast, it makes sense. So people,
I feel uncomfortable sometimes advocating for the movement. Because but I'm trying to, because I think I should try and inspire people. But yeah,
you did inspire me. You continue to inspire me. I'm
you.
grateful, because I am ZionistAF, Anya Farber. Guys, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, please, by all means, reach out. I'm here. You know where to find me.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.